What seemed like a normal day on the Johnson family farm took an unexpected turn when a huge hole suddenly appeared in the field. Alarmed, they called the authorities. When they arrived, the police examined the inside of the hole. But what they found at the bottom made them pale, a disturbing sight that went far beyond a natural sinkhole. But before we continue, smash the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss our upcoming stories. As the agents approached the house, Erica told her husband, Mark, that they had arrived. The couple waited anxiously while the police investigated. When Erica opened the door, she immediately bombarded the agent with questions, asking if they found anything and what could have caused it, wondering if it was safe for them to stay. His reaction, however, was not what she expected. He crossed his arms, stared at her in silence, and slowly shook his head. Confused, Erica prepared to ask another question, but was interrupted. The agent announced in a stern tone that Mr. and Mrs. Johnson had to come with them. Erica, confused, asked for clarification, and the officer repeated firmly that they both needed to come to the police station right now. Erica's first reaction was a nervous laugh, thinking it was a misunderstanding, but she quickly realized he was serious. She and Mark insisted they hadn't done anything, trying to explain themselves, but no one seemed willing to listen. The officer grabbed Erica by the arm and dragged her to the police car, while another did the same to Mark. The first officer harshly told them to shut up and save it for the interrogation, muttering something inaudible. Upon hearing these words, Erica paled, realizing this was much more serious than she had imagined. Erica and Mark sat in silence in the back of the police car, stunned. When Mark saw Erica's eyes fill with tears, he took her hand gently and whispered reassurance that their children would be fine. He knew she was distressed about leaving them, but there were now more pressing issues. For the rest of the journey, neither of them said a word. When they arrived at the police station, the same unsympathetic officer led them into an interrogation room, telling them to sit and wait before leaving and letting the door slam shut. Mark and Erica looked around, confused and nervous, having never been in an interrogation room. Erica sighed, trying to stay calm, but immediately began to worry about what the kids were doing and if the hole might get bigger. This time, Mark didn't have the chance to calm her. The door opened, and Agent Daniels introduced himself, firmly asking Miss Johnson to follow him. Erica's eyes widened and she asked why, but the agent simply repeated himself. Erica realized she had no choice, cast one last glance at Mark, and stood up. Hours later, Erica and Mark were finally reunited. They had both undergone an intense interrogation, during which it became clear that the police suspected they might be behind the mysterious hole. They answered all questions honestly, denying any involvement. Although there was no evidence against them, the police decided to let them return home, warning that they would remain under surveillance until the real culprit was identified. During the interrogations, both Erica and Mark had tried to get answers, repeatedly asking what had been found at the bottom of the well, but neither received a clear or satisfactory answer. It was clear the police had discovered something significant, but refused to reveal what it was. They sent the Johnsons home with clear instructions not to talk to anyone about what had happened, leaving them with the uncomfortable feeling that they were at the center of something much bigger than they could imagine. In the days that followed, the Johnsons barely set foot outside. They couldn't receive visitors, nor could they talk to anyone. Curiosity consumed them, but they decided to follow the police's instructions. Their property had been transformed into a veritable center of operations, full of police, experts, and investigators. Mark watched it all from the window, restless, wondering what they had found, and why no one would tell them. After all, it was their land. One silent night, Mark told his wife he was going down there, determined to find out the truth. Erica exclaimed in alarm, asking if he was crazy and forbidding him from going. Understanding her concern, he reluctantly gave in, and the couple agreed to wait, even though curiosity was eating them up inside. The next morning unfolded under the oppressive shadow of the police's constant presence. Mark sat with the newspaper, his eyes flicking through the pages without reading, while Erica sipped her coffee, unable to calm her mind. The house, once a refuge, had become a guarded stage where every move seemed watched. In the small town, the sinkhole was the dominant topic. Neighbors whispered nervously in the grocery store that it was bottomless, while others at the post office suggested it was an old mine. At the local restaurant, the most outlandish theories, from secret government experiments to portals to another world, were debated. Listening to these speculations, Erica felt torn between disbelief and a growing unease. At home, the tension was tangible. The children, sensitive to the stress, asked difficult questions, wondering why the police were there, which their parents didn't know how to answer. Mark tried to reassure them, but his words sounded hollow. An attempt at a family movie night felt forced, unable to mask the unease. Looking for a respite, Erica headed to the local restaurant, only to be engulfed by conversations about her property. Diners speculated about connections to ancient city mysteries. These unsubstantiated stories only fueled her anxiety. The hole was no longer just a void, it had become an abyss that sucked the peace out of her life. That evening, she and Mark sat in the silent living room, enveloped in the heavy atmosphere. Erica, full of frustration, asked why they weren't being told anything. Mark, equally exhausted, replied softly that they had to stay strong for themselves and the kids. The morning was abruptly interrupted by the arrival of news vans and reporters. Cameras and microphones turned their secluded home into the epicenter of unwanted attention. The Johnsons felt like animals in a zoo, watched by prying eyes. Erica, annoyed, closed the curtains, but the feeling of being constantly watched was overwhelming. Following police instructions, they refused all interviews. Mark calmly reminded Erica they couldn't say anything as a reporter waited outside. Erica nodded, torn between relief at doing the right thing and frustration at not being able to defend herself. The enforced silence protected them, but also suffocated them. As the day progressed, the weight of this decision became harder to bear. Despite the growing crowd, the Johnsons felt more isolated than ever, surrounded by a sea of inquisitive eyes. The sudden ringing of the phone broke the tense silence. It was an old college classmate of Mark's, now a geologist, who had followed the news. He put forward a surprising theory. The sinkhole might not be natural, but man-made. The idea sounded improbable, but the geologist's conviction captured Mark's attention. After the call, the family gathered around the kitchen table. Mark explained the theory as best he could. Everyone was skeptical, but the hypothesis raised disturbing possibilities. Mark finally admitted that while he didn't think it likely, at this point, anything was possible. Consumed by curiosity, Mark immersed himself in research, finding reports of old mining tunnels and clandestine excavations causing similar collapses. The more he read, the more divided he felt. Erica watched him, her mind buzzing with questions. What was really under their property? And who had put it there? Later, the geologist called again, this time more cautiously, admitting it was just a hunch and that he lacked concrete evidence. This revelation left Mark and Erica even more upset. They had hoped for answers but were left with more doubts. That night, sleep was far away as the day's revelations swirled in their minds. The idea that the hole was man-made cast an unsettling shadow over everything. The next morning revealed a crowd of onlookers covering the property. Mark and Erica watched from the window, the police presence a stark reminder of how their lives had been upended. The police set up barricades, but could barely keep the curious at bay. Erica and Mark felt overwhelmed by helplessness as strangers walked freely around, pointing and speculating. Reporters advanced to the door, demanding a statement. The couple refused to answer, but the incessant knocking intensified the tension. As he watched the chaos, Mark caught a snatch of conversation that made him shudder. Two unknown figures stood by the sinkhole, talking in low tones. One of them, casting furtive glances, said this wasn't just a natural occurrence. Driven by the need for answers, Mark went out the back door, trying to follow the strangers through the bustling crowd. He could only catch glimpses of their silhouettes until they disappeared completely. Frustrated, he returned home and told Erica about the strange conversation. They both began to seriously consider that the origin of the hole was not natural. The revelation added even more mystery to a situation that already seemed like a nightmare, leaving them overwhelmed by the complexity. The dawn was marked by the sound of heavy machinery as police brought in advanced digging equipment. From the window, Mark and Erica watched with apprehension. As the day progressed, the excavation team identified irregularities that pointed to possible human intervention. Mark captured fragments of conversations between the policemen and felt a shiver as he considered that someone might have done this on purpose. When he shared this with Erica, she was overcome with fear and disbelief. The local newspaper ran a front-page story hinting at the Johnsons' possible involvement in illicit activities. Reading it, Erica was seized by anger and helplessness. The town was divided. Some neighbors offered support, while others, influenced by rumors, cast suspicious glances. This division intensified the couple's feeling of isolation. As sunset approached, Mark and Erica settled into the living room, carrying the crushing weight of public suspicion. The tranquility of the night was abruptly interrupted when they awoke to the sound of someone trying to force their way into the house. Outside, a shadowy figure moved by the window. Adrenaline pumping, Mark headed for the source of the noise, while Erica dialed 911. Mark, wielding a baseball bat, shouted firmly at the intruder. The figure at the window stepped back, surprised, and disappeared into the darkness. Erica, still on the line, recounted the events with a trembling voice. Shortly after, the police arrived, but their response was disappointingly apathetic. An officer suggested it was probably just a curious person, and there was nothing to worry about. Mark and Erica, frustrated, insisted the incident was too serious to be dismissed. The nonchalant attitude of the authorities only intensified their feeling of exposure. That night, sleep was impossible. Every creak seemed to carry an invisible threat. The following night, the intruder returned. This time, Mark and Erica were ready. As the figure tried to force his way in, Mark immediately confronted him, holding him firmly while Erica called the police again. The intruder, caught red-handed, tried to resist, but Mark managed to overpower him. The sound of sirens cut through the stillness as police arrived and quickly took the intruder into custody. Standing there, they watched the man being handcuffed. After the police left, Mark and Erica sat in the living room, plunged into silence. They began to discuss the possibility of a link between the intruder and the sinkhole. Erica wondered aloud if he could be involved. Mark shared the same concern, the suspicion growing that this break-in was directly related to the enigma. The evening ended with a timid glimmer of hope that this incident might finally lead to answers. The next day brought an important breakthrough. The police officially confirmed that Mark and Erica had no involvement in the creation of the sinkhole. An officer came to their house to tell them the news, relieving them of the burden they had been carrying. Further investigation revealed the surprising truth. Illegal mining tunnels had caused the collapse. The officer explained that extensive clandestine digging under the property had destabilized the ground. The intruder, now in custody, revealed links to a group of illegal miners who had dug the tunnels, convinced there was a significant deposit of valuable stones or minerals under the Johnsons' land. This discovery clarified the motives behind the intruder's presence. The reality of miners operating right under their feet was both frightening and revealing. At the end of the day, they let out a deep sigh of relief. In the days following, the Johnsons noticed a remarkable change. Those neighbors who had looked at them with suspicion began to approach with apologies and words of sincere support. Mark and Erica were deeply touched by the gestures of solidarity, home-cooked meals, kind notes, and offers of help. With the revelation, the media narrative changed dramatically, focusing on the complex story of clandestine mining. This brought the family much-needed relief as the cameras disappeared. The local police chief paid a visit to make a formal apology for the disruption, admitting the situation had been handled with less sensitivity than appropriate, and assuring them the miners would be pursued. In the comfort of their home, Mark and Erica reflected on how the ordeal had brought them closer. They had faced suspicion, fear, and the violation of their privacy, but emerged stronger and more united. The story concludes with the Johnsons' decision to turn their difficult experience into a catalyst for positive change. They became active advocates for stronger community ties and stricter supervision over land use, determined to prevent others from experiencing something similar. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss amazing tales like this one.